It's there.
Welcome to Meat Pies and Shots 3, Part 1. I'm Johnny Compton.
I'm Dan Tomlinson.
Right, and new format. What we've decided to do, Part 1, we're going to look at first 3 games of Super League. Part 2 this week will be second 3 games of Super League. Part 3 will be me and Dan having a rant about an on-topic discussion.
That'll be interesting.
Stick around for that one. And Part 4, NRL. So, let's kick off, Dan. First game of round 6 was...
7.
Round 7.
There we mate. You can tell he's on a week off work, can't you?
Losing my head. Wakefield v Warrington, 32-34. Thoughts?
Great game. We'll start off, really good game. Warrington looked like they were going to run away with it. It was 18-0 up inside like 10-12 minutes, weren't they? And they were, winning the game by about 4 scores, and then Wakefield just had that last bit of resurgence, didn't they? And they almost won the game. If Mr. Bruff could kick them, they might have won the game, or at least tied it and took it to golden point. I don't know which way you can look at this. You can either look at it at Warrington taking the cue off the rack, or you can look at it at Wakefield, going up that gear. Maybe a bit of complacency by the Wolves. I bet Steve Price was absolutely, fuming when he got into the sheds and actually spoke to his team. But you can see why Chris Chester was so pleased. But then at the same time, you're thinking, hang on a minute, why didn't you start the game like that? Why did it take you, getting shafted by 30 points for you to start playing? And you can look at it from that point of view. But I bet you've got a smile on your face here, because Fafita was outstanding. That fat lad that you said can actually play big minutes. It was right, wasn't he? Fafita is up there with... I'm not going to say the very best in Super League, but he's not far off. He's a very good prop forward. And I thought the arse for Wakefield, Bruff and Miller were very good. And I just like the way Wakefield play the game as well. They never say die attitude. It's a bit like what we've seen at Hull during the 2 cup winning years. As for Warrington, I think they've got... They will worry the fact that they let the game slip as much as they did. And they quite easily could have lost that. You're talking another maybe 2 minutes and Wakefield could have won. So... They'll be really disappointed, and that does worry me looking ahead, because their next game is obviously against our black and white sort of FC.
I sort of look at it, and this game is an example of, in every single game that's played in Super League, and given how tight the league is, and bottom to top, there's not much between the teams really. It's an example of it. Each team will get a period of momentum in any given game, and it's how you ride that period of momentum. And for a long time, Warrington were red hot. Absolutely red hot. But then also Wakefield, they had their spell where they were red hot. And you look at Wakefield scored more tries than Warrington. It was Stephen Ratchford's goal kicking was the difference between the two. Danny Bruff even alluded to it on Sky afterwards when he turned around and said the difference was Steph kicked all of his. And
it was on 2 penalty goals, wasn't it? Yeah. And there was one where there was already 3 scores ahead and they went for the goal again, didn't they? And I sort of went, well, what are you doing? And it ends up winning the game.
It was a very shrewd move. I think they looked at it and that point in the game, and also... They probably knew what their energy levels were like and what they had left in their tank, and the penalty, it sort of leads you to believe that they were wanting to slow the game down at that point. And Wakefield play best when they play quickly. I mean, you've got to say, if they'd have had Bill Tupou and Tom Johnson in that team, they'd have won that game.
Yeah, so both on the left edge as well. Absolutely. Take that into account.
Early doors, Warrington did target that edge as well. Max Jowett and Joe Arundel, as much as they're decent players, they're not Bill Tupou and Tom Johnson. And it's how Wakefield tackled the loss of Johnston now long term going forward with it. It'll be interesting. I don't know how long Tupou's out. Do you know anything about that?
Matter of weeks.
Yeah, so
a couple of months.
Tupou will come back and add something to them, but they do probably look like they're a winger short now. I agree with everything Dan said about Wakefield, about how they're a well balanced team, they're a well coached team, and.
That's interesting on its own, though, isn't it? Because, Mr. Chester deemed not good enough at one club and they let him go. That club ends up getting relegated, end of lower end of Super League.
We'll come on to them later.
And you've got Wakefield, playoff contender. I think you can definitely say that.
I would say definitely they are looking at a playoff spot. Now we're into the top 5.
Very surprised if they don't finish in the top 5. No. I was wrong against Wakefield, and I'll tell you put your hand up there. Wakefield, very good team. They're just really likeable. I know we say this every time. I talk about Wakefield, but there's nothing to dislike about them apart from the ground itself.
I tell you, there was an interesting point from this game though. We looked at it, and Wakefield have got what you call their big lad on the edge in Paulie, massive there. Warrington have their big lad on the edge in Ben Masilla.
Some shots on him, didn't he?
At no point did they go up against each other. They had them directly opposite, running at midgets, didn't they?
Well, they're not stupid. Let's get the big fella running at the little lad on the edge. That's what you're doing, isn't it?
Is there an argument that you go, right, I'm going to send... say you're Warrington, you got Murdoch Masilla on the right edge going at Wakefield's left edge. Do you say, in attack, you run right edge. Defensively, we'll stick you on that left edge and put you up and try and nullify Paulie. It's
tough one.
Yeah.
Just an enjoyable game though, you know, for a Thursday night, obviously, you know, we're still match-going fans that attend the FC home and away, and I don't agree with Thursday nights. It's alright for the armchair supporter, but for those that go up and down the country watching their club, I just don't agree with them. But for entertainment-wise...
Try working in London and then coming back for a Thursday night.
Well, I think it's bad enough going from West Hull personally, but but yeah, it's just a really good advert for Super League, really good show of attacking rugby. It was just an entertaining game, wasn't it? And that's what we want. I think Super League was criticised rightly so for being a bit tedious, a bit boring, a bit lacklustre last year, but this year for me it's delivering. I think it's really entertained. I'm actually enjoying Sky Games, barring Stuart Cummins' involvements in the commentary, but I think I'm really enjoying the viewing experience. I think, you know, Super League this year is looking much better. All the rule changes, the adaptations that we've seen at the game, I think are helping Super League as a competition.
Stephen Moore has made a huge difference.
Well, we know it, don't we, from playing even in the amateur game, you know, while we're pissed up on a Saturday afternoon from the previous night. Well,
never had a drink in my life before again.
Coffee and water, aren't we? Yeah. You know, Stephen Moore, it's something that is potentially to an outsider so petty, but it actually makes a massive difference. A rhino ball in the wet is like handling a bar of soap and throwing it around your mates. Maybe you've done that if you're that way inclined, I don't know. But yeah, there's massive difference between rhino and Stephen balls. With your mates. Yeah. Each to their own though, isn't
it? Right. Castleford Saints. Now, I was a bit shocked. I tipped Castleford to roll Saints here, I'll be honest now.
I tipped St Helens.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's why I'm ahead of you in the tipping league now, isn't it?
Only just 2 points.
1 point.
1 point?
Yeah, I think I'm 1 point ahead of you. I'll just lavish in my glory while I can.
Saints, for me, in the weeks leading up to this, had played a bit loose. I thought a loss was round the corner, and I thought Castleford, on their own pitch, would be the team that would give it to them. I was wrong. They were red hot Saints, and teams have these weeks, don't they, where everything the touch comes off for them. Loose passes stick, ball hits the ground, it goes to a man, and then he rolls over and scores. That's not taken away from the skill level, because they did play really well, and their front rowers are on fire. But the two players that make the biggest difference for me with St Helens and had the biggest impact on that game were, I thought, the two edge back rowers, Peru and Tyre. And what they do is they allow Lomax and Farge to go about their game completely and take all the pressure off them, because defences have to keep such an eye on them. And these are players who weren't massively heralded. Zeb Tyre was seen as past it when he came back as part of the Joe Greenwood deal when he went down under. And then Dominic Peru, who's brought over as a winger stroke centre, who played in the NRL, has been transformed into an outstanding edge back rower. A lot of credit's got to go to Justin Holbrook here, but I do think it was just one of those weeks where everything stuck, everything happened, and that won't happen all the time.
I agree with Peru. I think Peru was absolutely outstanding as an edge back rower. It was pretty devastating. There's one player there who I think is the glue of St Helens who we didn't mention. And ironically, we did a draft, meat pies and shots that actually never made it onto YouTube. We did it at a radio station, didn't we? And we just thought, we're not going to put that up, we'll do it again, and that's what we ended up doing. But Johnny asked me a question, who is St Helens' most important player? And I said the fullback, Lachlan Coote. And just watching, paying actual attention to him on Friday when Cass played Saints, he never... I know obviously it's a fullback's responsibility to do this, but it's the way you handle it. And he marshals his defence superbly. He gets his numbers right. He's vocal. In attack, I think he's decent. He pops up everywhere. He scored a try brace on the night. For me, he's definitely a more rounded fullback, shall we say, than Ben Barber last year. Ben Barber last year was absolutely phenomenal in attack, but he was hopeless defensively. We all remember that Super League semi-final when Tom Lynam made him look like an absolute fairy. It was the most lazy, half-hearted attempt of attacker you'll ever see in your life. I think Lachlan Coote's got a much better side to his game there. as I said, defensively
balances them.
Exactly, balances them out, and it is massively underrated player for me this year. Everyone talks about, the St Helens, and you mentioned your James Robies, your Peros, your Theo Farges, but for me, Lachlan Coote has been outstanding. I'm surprised that more, so-called experts, like me and Johnny haven't singled him out more.
All right, I'm not gonna dispute what he's saying. Absolutely, he's been very good for them, and he has been very good. But individually, as a player himself, I don't think he's been that outstanding. He's got a great left foot kicking game.
He's solid.
Yeah, it's been solid. He's a 7 out of 10. That's what he's been. But he does enable the rest of the players to flourish around them, and he's allowed them to play with Farge and Lomax because he's got that left foot kicking game.
And how much better do they look like without Danny Richardson, who I told you was an overrated piece of garbage?
I still think he's playing Danny Richardson. I really do.
He's hopeless. He's not a Super League player at all. He just kicks, and he doesn't offer anything else.
Although you sound like the other fans talking about Mark Sneed. He's caused us lots of problems. Danny Richardson's a young lad who came through Super League Dream Team scrum half last year. He was the leading point scorer in Super League. You don't do that by accident. He's a good player there. They're lucky to have
leading
the depth
point scorer because St Helens scored the most tries.
Well,
he gets a few conversions. What did he do?
He wasn't just in for kicking though. Yeah, Holbrook's not a mug. He played ahead of Farge last year.
So why isn't he now? Because he's not a Super League quality halfback.
Farge's defence is stronger than Richardson. And I think that's what they've gone for. So ideally, they were worried about Richardson's defence because that's one area of it, his play, that is gash. And they looked at it and they wanted to play somebody who was defensively stronger, but in order to do that, they needed to substitute his kicking game. And Lachlan Coote's come in and allowed them to do that. I just have a feeling with Saints that they won't win anything apart from the dog dish again. I really do. I've said it every week now, and I said as good as they've been, and you can't take away they've been very, very good. I see weaknesses, I see holes. Regan Grace, there's a hole there. Kevin Nagama is not as amazing as people are making out. Yeah, once you see off Walmsley and Thompson, Lees and Ashworth, whilst the good young props coming through, they're not at that same level, and there's a definite dip there. With St Helens, either side of half time, you can get at them, but you'd have to cash in, you'd have to be red hot, and you almost need them to have an off day to get them. I admit that, but pressure breeds.
That's the problem with our format, and a lot of people mention it. Super League, you only have to turn up for a month, don't you? You do obviously you have to get the points on the board, you have to get the wins to be able to be in that situation anyway. Yeah. But St Helens will look at this. They're the best team in the comp right now. They've won their opening 7 games. That'll be it when the stuff for overs this weekend. But there comes to a point where you think, hang on a minute, if you don't turn up in September, then what's the point in being red hot, from February to September itself? And that's what Saints were last year. And when it mattered most, they didn't turn up, did they? They got turned over by Catalans quite comprehensively in Bolton in the Challenge Cup, and then obviously Warrington did them in the Super League playoff, and they'll be wary of that. And it's all about one-off games, isn't it? Who's going to turn up in the one-off game and do them on the end of the day? And that's why I'm probably inclined to agree with you, Johnny. I don't think St Helens will win the grand final. It could be Cass, could be Warrington. You never know what's going to happen. Well, no, let's not be stupid. But there's definitely some holes in Saints, and it's regular season, isn't it? And it's sort of how much credit can you? How much credit can you give them right now?
What I will say is that they are playing the closest to their optimum of any of the teams in Super League, and they're hitting that level consistently week on week. They've been a bit, as I said, they've been a bit loose weeks previously, but they've still had enough, to get the job done. They've not really blown teams away until this week. It's been relatively close. That being said, they are probably 80-90% most weeks, whereas most teams are operating about 65-70%. You'd say, and I don't know, these are rough analogies, but that's where they're at, and there hasn't been a dip in their form so far. My question is, when you get to a real intense game and one of these other teams lifts their intensity so much, really delivers, do they have that additional gear to go to lift their intensity? I don't know.
That's exactly what I was getting at before. Castleford, though, disappointing on the night. I was impressed with Castleford's start to the year, but they really got pummeled by it, didn't they? They got well beaten. Disappointing. This Man of Steel thing, right? These so-called Xbox. How did Peter Matautar get 2 points in the Man of Steel voting? Was I watching the same game? Because they got absolutely smashed.
He took a lot of high bombs, and that was about it.
Nice one, so they caught a few high bombs, right? Great, it's given 2 points. And these are supposed to be, these are supposed to be the most knowledgeable men out there, as far as rugby league in the UK goes.
Who got the? I didn't see the Man of Steel points. Who got the other Man of Steel points then? I assume it was Peru.
Do you know what? I don't even. All I know is that
Lomax.
I just saw it on Twitter. Matautai got 2 points for Castleford. It's crazy, isn't it?
They're going to have an off game though, and some teams are going to have it now and then at home, and it just happened. And it goes back to the momentum I was talking about in the Wakefield-Warrington game. Saints got the momentum early on and they never relinquished it. And it's how long you can ride that momentum in any given game. By the time they eased off a little bit, well, they didn't really ease off, but by the time they went down another gear, the game was won. It was done. Castleford couldn't come back into it, and they were shell-shocked. What strikes me as odd with Castleford is the Ben Roberts situation.
Letting him go, yeah.
I mean,
weird, that, isn't it?
Ben Roberts disappears off, and by all accounts, he's not retiring. He's fixed up somewhere else. He's gonna be announced elsewhere shortly. He's a better player than Jordan Rankin, isn't he?
Yeah, I'll say
Ben
so,
Roberts?
yeah, if he's fit.
If he's fit,
That's the problem. If when he's fit, and he has had a couple of injury-torn years. As for Castleford, though, how funny was it seeing Darryl Powell walk onto the pitch with his dummy spat out? He spat his dummy that far out, it ended up in Wakefield. That was embarrassing. That's a Super League head coach going onto the pitch and screaming like a 2-year-old toddler throwing a tantrum.
But Dan, right? Lots of people have made a big song and dance about Darryl Powell going onto the pitch. Who cares, really?
I just think it's funny. Yeah, it's just funny to see him spit his dummy out.
Lost it. But people were saying, he should be disciplined.
No, that's so far.
Load of rubbish.
No, that's a load of rubbish.
He's a coach who should be allowed to get his
I'm not
message
angry because he went on the pitch. I just think it's hilarious because he spat his dummy out and made himself look like an idiot. I don't think he should, be sinister and be throwing fans and throwing bands at anything like that. Moving on then. Huddersfield v Hull Kingston Rovers, 42-8 to Huddersfield. Well, this is kind of ironic, really, isn't it? Because, as you all know by now, me and Johnny are all FC fans, and we sat and defended her a lot last year. I did spit my dummy out and all got smashed at those 2 defeats at Warrington and Wakefield. But elsewhere, we defended them. It wasn't the Hull FC that we'll see this year because 2/3 of the team and 2/3 of the salary cap was in the bloody stand, injured or suspended or ill or you name it. And that sort of excuse with the injury didn't apply to opposition fans. They didn't care. They just said, it's a squad game, what are you making excuses for?
Bring your reserves in.
Bring your reserves in, yeah, bring your academy in. Well, we haven't got an academy, have we, for a start? It's a farce. Rovers get a few injuries. I think they had about 11 out, didn't they? And then that's all you hear. We've got injuries. Every team goes through injuries. You were telling us last year that you've got to get on with it, man up. It's a squad game. I think it's just ironic how things pan out, innit? And Huddersfield were at full strength fever. That must be said. Huddersfield had a lot of players out.
You've seen all sorts of players, aren't they?
But they battered them. And Rovers' defence was shocking. I watched the highlight reel and Mossy Massot, he's an absolute pudding. They just ran straight through him like he wasn't even there.
There was one thing that really struck me. I'm going to try not to just be Rovers bashing, but it's hard not to go. There was one thing that struck me. Rovers, clearly, because the bench was very light. They had 3 young kids on there and they had Sean Lunt, who's not played for months and months.
They didn't play one of those kids, did they?
So they went with their strongest 13 that was available to start the game. And their plan was to go out and blitz Huddersfield. So early doors, they get a penalty close to the Huddersfield line, ready for an attacking set, and they take 2 points. You're going to have. They were always going to have to have it. Absolutely.
Sweet child.
I have no real issue sometimes with taking the 2, but if your game plan is to blitz the opposition early doors and really get at them and go after them, why then take 2 points? Straight away, it's a white flag going up there saying we don't think we can bust through you.
You've gone straight away from your game plan, though, haven't you? I mean, all Kingston Rovers, and I'm not just saying this because I'm an FC fan, but their squad, everyone sort of said, they've replaced some quantity with quality. Well, where's the quality? Lads, Josh Drinkwater obviously played very well at Catalans last season, but that was behind a pack which was dominant in those cup games. Their best player for me is Chris Atkin, and they treat him like a piece of rubbish.
He can't be staying there. Sure.
Chris Atkin must be thinking to myself, I could probably get gigs at 2-3 other Super League clubs here quite comfortably. What am I doing here?
You mentioned it though, Dan. Right? You called that the last year when we had all these injuries and we were going through this run we got no sympathy there. But it's not just. I can see real parallels with them at the moment and the state they're in with where we were at the start of the Super 8s last year. And once you get into that rut, it's really difficult. Because even when, right, they've got a few coming back this week, but you can almost guarantee they'll have lost a couple from last week as well. You lose players as you get them back, so you're never really ever at full strength at that point.
Look, I'll just show us another example again. This year, we've been welcoming players that missed the end of last season. We've been getting them back as the season went on. But every time we get one back, we'll lose one, don't we? It's like, I mean, it was the most recent example is London this week. We had Mickey Peyer back, but then Joe Westerman and Mark Minicello come out. It's been that case, throughout the season. We've got Jake Connor back and then we lose Jamie Shaw.
You're always managing maybe 4 or 5 as a minimum missing, aren't you, on any given week? It's very rare you get a full strength. And that's probably why St Helens are going as well as they are, because they are at full strength.
Well, someone did say that last year. St Helens aren't actually the best team, they're just the least injured team.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit harsh because, regular season, St Helens were good last season, but at the end of the day, it's a comp where you've got to turn it on when it matters most, and St Helens didn't do that, did they? That
game, though, you go back to the game with Huddersfield, Ulkiara here, and I have to say some of their young kids really stepped up. The Cruz Lehman again looked like
good young hooker, yeah, really good.
He really took charge of that game and took Ulkiara apart a little bit, and it was talking to the Ulkiara fans who went along and yeah, well, other fans when they weren't throwing stones or bottles at the players.
Was actually Running Rovers from Twitter was absolutely hilarious on Friday. That is the best thing that's ever been introduced to rugby league fans. Just Rovers' official count, and every time they went try Huddersfield, the meltdown. Sheen's out, same shit every year. They're up in arms. It's like it's round 8. It's round 8 for them, isn't it? It's like calm down. You're still 4 points clear of lead. As it stands right now, you're not necessarily going down, are you? It's like just calm down a little bit.
It's a funny old league, though, isn't it? It can turn around in a couple of weeks, and it was only 3 weeks ago they were crowing about how they were going to make the playoffs, and now they're genuinely worried. I know from talking to genuine Rovers fans that they are worried about being pulled into a relegation script, and they don't see where the next win's coming from. They don't see that the enthusiasm is there from the players, the commitment is there, but how much of that is the fans getting on the back of the players as well? There comes a point where you've got to.
Junior Vive put that on Instagram.
That's really telling. That if you've got your own players going out publicly slating their own fans and saying "come with us," or I'm calling them keyboard warriors, it's not an healthy position to be in. Not that we're bothered.
No, not at all. We'll leave that there for the end of part 1 of Meat Pies and Shots. We'll see you in a bit.
It's there.